Hey guys, how's it going? Today we are at Sun Studio in Memphis, Tennessee. I am so excited. This is the birthplace of rock and roll. Elvis, Roy Orbison, Jerry Lee Lewis, basically anybody you can think of that helped in the early days of rock and roll. It happened here. We are going to go in and we're going to talk a little bit of the history of Memphis music, history of rock and roll, history of Sun Studio, and we're talking to John Paul Keat, a local Memphis rockabilly dude who is super awesome. So stick around, it's going to be a fun one. Today, I'm bringing you to a spot I've had on my bucket list for as long as I can remember. The place rock and roll was born. This room, founded by Sam Phillips in 1952, recorded some of the most iconic music in history. Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis, Roy Orbison, and so many more. Music wouldn't be what it is today without Sun Records and Sun Studio. Hey guys, I am so excited. We are at Sun Studio today. I'm talking to Daniel Crockett Hall, the audio engineer here. Just want to talk a little bit of the history of this place. It's magical. I can't even believe I'm sitting in this room right now.
It's a very special room.
How did you get started here at Sun?
A friend of mine was a tour guide that I used to do shows with. Her name's Tiffany Harmon. She'd posted that they were looking for tour guides here, and I thought, if I began giving tours, maybe I can start working in the studio. I applied. And at first didn't get it right away. They'd already had somebody kind of lined up. So I cleaned houses for a couple months and was broke as a joke. And then got the call back about a month or two after, got the job. And by the third day I was working in the studio, bringing people coffees and wrapping cables, setting up microphones. Awesome. And then from there, it's just kind of blossomed. 1952,
Sam Phillips is, he starts Sun Records, recording B.B. King, Rufus Thomas, Howlin' Wolf. Can we talk a little bit about the history and how this place went from that early time to when, Elvis comes in here as an 18-year-old, changes the game?
Sam had grown up on a farm in Florence, Alabama. He'd come up to Memphis with his father when he was a child and heard a band called the Memphis Jug Band, which was a blues band that was playing on Beale Street. At that time, Beale Street was considered to be the black capital of the South. He hears this incredible band and he launches him kind of into this world that he's not familiar with. So he moves up to Memphis to become a broadcast engineer, broadcasting out of the Peabody Hotel. He's working with a woman named Marion Keisker, who is her DJ name is Kitty Kelly. She would do, radio shows, some advice columns and things like that on air where people would call in, sort of Delilah style. She's a disc jockey there. He's a broadcast engineer. He is still hearing, as an adult, all of this incredible blues music that's coming off of Beale Street, and he's noticing how there's not really, at that point in time, any professional studio where those artists can go. So he and Marion looked for about a year for a space. They finally settled on the room we're currently sitting in, 706 Union Avenue. This was an old garage before it was a recording studio, which I always thought was a little bit funny because you think about all of the different garage bands that would have been launched from the music that was made in this room. He works with a man named Dewey Phillips, who he didn't have any relationship to as kin, but they were both very eccentric characters. Dewey was another radio disc jockey. He would broadcast for WHBQ. He had a show called Red Hot and Blue. He was also, at that point in time, one of the only white people who would frequent Beale Street. He was going into the bars there, hanging out with the musicians, playing their records on air. He was one of the first people to desegregate the airwaves by playing both black and white artists on the same radio program. Sam approached Dewey in the lobby bar of the Peabody and said, hey, I'd really love your help on getting some of these artists you're playing into the studio I've started. And so Dewey began sending him acts like Joe Hill Lewis, Roscoe Gordon, B.B. King's brought in here by the Bahari Brothers. Howlin' Wolf begins recording here and he's being put out by the Chess record label. And at that point in time, this is only a recording studio. He records a song called Rocket 88 with Ike Turner and Jackie Brenston. And it's Jackie Brenston and his Delta Cats was the band's name. They came in as Ike Turner and his Kings of Rhythm, but Sam didn't really like Ike's voice, so he comes in and asks for a different song. They launch into Rocket 88, Jackie sings it, it becomes a #1 hit on the R&B charts in 1951, and it convinces Sam to start the Sun Record Company.
I want to talk, obviously, about the $1 Million Quartet a little bit. So I've read, I don't even know how many versions of this story. Everybody kind of has their own version. I want to hear your version of it.
Absolutely. So Carl Perkins had a session that night. He's in here working with a then unknown session piano player named Jerry Lee Lewis. Jerry had sold a few hundred eggs with his father to be able to afford the gas from Louisiana to Memphis after hearing Elvis on the radio. Sam would say after hearing Jerry perform for the first time that it felt like he'd walked into a dream, and he immediately began to hire Jerry as a session piano player here at the studio. So Carl's in here with his band, Jerry's on piano, and they're working on a song called Matchbox, which would later be covered by the Beatles. Carl Perkins, of course, at that point in time had had a massive crossover hit with a song called Blue Suede Shoes. Elvis has just returned to Memphis from his very first trip to Las Vegas. That night, Elvis decided to come here to the studio. He's only freshly into his contract with RCA by right about a year. It's December 4th, 1956. He walks into the session and immediately Sam sees an opportunity. He makes 2 phone calls. His first is to Johnny Cash, who's getting ready to go out and do his Christmas shopping for the evening, which is why in the photo he's not in his trademark, all black. Sam also is called the Memphis Press-Simeter, which is a local newspaper. They staged the photo of Elvis sitting at the piano with Carl and the guitar, Johnny behind Elvis, and Jerry Lee over to the left of Carl in the photo. The very next day in the paper, it runs with the tagline, $1 Million Quartet. After the paper leaves, they all sat around in here and for about 4 hours just swapped stories, played music together. It's a really interesting recording that was finally made available legally in 2006 after Sam passed away. RCA bought the rights. Just these icons sitting here as just 4 individual people. You really can see them for the humans that they are instead of these kings, of rock and roll music.
I'll be bringing you more music history from Sun Studio after these messages. Welcome back to More Than the Music. Today, I'm in Memphis, Tennessee at Sun Studio. What is your favorite Sun story?
There's an artist, Billy Lee Riley, who was hitchhiking alongside of the road with a guitar. And so Cowboy Jack picks him up. Billy Lee Riley would go on to kind of found what would become Memphis garage rock. Billy was quite frustrated with the fact that Sam had decided to push Jerry Lee's whole lot of shaking going on. And so he shows up at the studio just absolutely drunk out of his mind. He gets here, walks through the front door, through Marion's office, comes into the studio, and immediately goes back into the control room, starts taking all of the master tapes and just unthreading them, destroying the control room. So Marion calls Sam and she says to Sam, hey, Billy Lee Riley is here. He is very upset. I don't know what is going on. He's clearly drunk. What do you want me to do? Sam says, lock him in. I'll be right there. He sits Billy down in that back room, talks to him until the early hours of the morning, and explaining to him what it is that he's trying to accomplish, that he's not pushing Jerry Lee's music out in front of Billy Lee Riley because he doesn't believe that Billy is an incredible artist, but that he believes this song is going to help allow us to continue working as a group. Sam just has this ability to really draw out of his artists their best. I find that to be a truly fascinating story from the era.
What is a Sun deep cut that you think is underappreciated?
When I first started working here, growing up in a town like Memphis, you see Elvis, Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee, all the time. You're very familiar with their stories growing up here. And so when I first began working here, I remember feeling like, how am I going to find the personal enjoyment in these stories that I'm already familiar with? And once I began reading all of the books I could get my hands on about the place, you start to find out about all these incredible artists like Barbara Pittman, who we have a picture of on the back wall of the studio underneath Roy Orbison. She's a childhood friend of Elvis's. She put out one of my favorite songs, No Matter Who's to Blame. There's Roscoe Gordon Jr., who's pictured directly behind me on this wall with a chicken on his shoulder, Butch. That's a rooster that he would take with him to shows, and then Rooster liked to drink scotch out of a teacup, and then he'd just fall over drunk. And that's how Roscoe would end his show. Roscoe has a great song called Booted that I absolutely love. I think it's really interesting that on the tours that we give, we all kind of try to make sure that these other artists who, as you mentioned, might be unheard of or unknown are getting their due as well, because they also had an impact and an influence on the people that you've heard of.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you all for coming in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
After these messages, I'll sit down for a chat with Memphis artist John Paul Keith. Welcome back to More Than the Music. Today I'm in Memphis hanging out at Sun's studio. Now I'm bringing you along for a talk with local musician John Paul Keith. He's a staple player here in town and he plays all over the world. From his own original music to covers of some of the biggest hits from Memphis music history, John Paul Keith is an important figure in today's Memphis music scene. Hey guys, we are at Sun Studio in Memphis and I am talking to John Paul Keith. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I am super stoked to talk to you. So you are a native of Knoxville, Tennessee. So why Memphis instead of Nashville?
Well, I did live in Nashville for a few years. 17 years ago, I was in my 20s and not sure what I was going to do next. And my sister said, why don't you just come try Memphis for a while, see how it goes. And 17 years later, I'm still here.
Well, it seems like you've got yourself a pretty good gig, hanging out at Sun,
yeah,
gigging around town, just got off of a European tour.
Memphis has been really good to me.
That's awesome. Talk to us a little bit about your album, The Rhythm of the City, and kind of how that all came to fruition.
Well, it's my 5th studio album. We started working on that record in 2018. We finished it up in 2019. We're about to put it out in 2020. We decided, given what was happening at the time, to wait. So we waited to put it out until February of 2021. I still didn't get to tour behind it until April 2022. So it's been sort of a long rollout.
Getting your money's worth.
Yeah. So, but it's sort of, the album came about partly because I was playing a lot on Beale Street with a horn section for the first time in my career, and that was a new experience that inspired me to write more for that. I was doing some things at Graceland also. We did the Elvis A Christmas Piece concert. We had horns for that. We had a 40-piece choir. All of that was sort of informing the music I was writing. I was writing songs at the time, or attempting to write songs for Don Bryant, who is a Memphis soul music legend, wrote things like I Can't Stand the Rain, and many other classics. Some of the material I ended up using for my album came out of that. But that was the reason the album has more of a soul music flavor to it.
Talk to us a little bit about your music video for The Sun's Gonna Shine Again.
In addition to Sun Studio, Memphis has a really incredible amount of great analog recording studios. Electrophonic is one of those, and that's where we cut the album. And we shot the video there. We actually shot it on an iPhone. We were pretty happy with how it came out, considering it, we were just learning as we went.
Yeah, some of the best stuff happens that way, I swear. Let's check it out, y'all.
Skies.
Stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back with more. Welcome back to More Than the Music from Memphis, Tennessee. We're at Sun Studio talking with John Paul Key. Can you talk to us a little bit about what your very first time at Sun was like?
The very first time I came here to Sun was as a tourist. This was many years ago. I was probably right out of high school, and I remember they played something over the speakers in here, like a montage of some Sun Records classics, and it made the hair on the back of my neck stand completely up, being in the same room and hearing it in the room where it was cut. But many years later, I had the privilege of working here as a session guitarist and recording here for many different projects over the years. And even though I do in a way feel at home here, sometimes when I'm recording in here and I look up and kind of think about where I am for a second, I still get kind of freaked out. You know, it's definitely hallowed ground for American music. There was a lot of influential creativity happened in this space.
Absolutely. You've played with a lot of awesome artists. Who is one bucket list person that you haven't gotten to play with that you would just love to play with?
I've gotten to play for him, but I've never gotten to play with him, and that's James Burton, one of the legends of the electric guitar. You know, he played with Ricky Nelson and then of course Elvis Presley. I've gotten to meet him and gotten to know him a little bit. I often play at the guest house at Graceland, which is the hotel they built out there a few years ago. One Elvis week I was playing out there, I think it was 2018, in walks James Burton into the lobby. Went up, talked to him in the break. Got invited to play his 80th birthday party, which was amazing. I got to play with my band, but he didn't play with us, so I still haven't gotten to play with James Burton, so that would definitely be a bucket list person for me.
Favorite Memphis barbecue?
Every time I go out of town and I come back to town, I find myself craving Tops. It's just something that after I've been gone for a while, I just crave it.
So let's suppose you weren't an awesome guitarist and band person, and you were a professional wrestler. What would your walkout song be?
On the tour of this last time, we were threatening to use the song Oh Yeah from Ferris Bueller's Day Off by a group called Yellow. I was threatening to have that as our walk-on music, so maybe I would do that if I were a wrestler.
What was the first album you ever bought?
Thriller by Michael Jackson. It was a gift, but it was the first album that I ever asked for. I grew up on country music, and that was the first non-country music I ever heard. A cousin played it for me on a Walkman. It was a very 1980s moment. It changed my life.
If you're feeling down, what is your favorite cure for the blues?
I really like really spicy food. So spicy it makes my temples sweat. And whenever I'm feeling down, I seek that out. And it usually makes me feel a little better.
Yeah. John Paul Key, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to chat with you.
Yeah.
Sun Studio is a place you can't miss if you're visiting Memphis, but we've got more to show you. Join us next week to see the Peabody Ducks, get a peek at some of the best barbecue in Memphis, and I'll be heading to the Mike Curb Institute of Music at Rhodes College to talk Memphis music history with Dr. John Bass. Be sure to tune in.
It's good.